Well, welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about new U.S. sanctions on China's military and China's demand that they be withdrawn. We continue now with our panel, and let's go back to London to Alexander Nekrassov. Alexander, clearly Russia's been looking at this action very closely. The deputy foreign minister of Russia said, and I'm quoting here, "This is thoughtlessly undermining global stability by whipping up tensions in Russian-American ties." I mean, that's pretty strong talk. They're talking about global stability being threatened. What do you make of it?
Well, I think our today's program shows that we, the four of us, are trying to find some logic, common sense in the policies of Donald Trump. And we are finding them and sort of thinking that there's some reasonable center in Washington that takes these policy decisions. I don't think so. I think this is the result of these divisions in Washington. When somebody does something and some other party says, "Oh, so you're doing this, we're going to put pressure on you because you are with the Russians," and so on. And that's why it's very difficult to actually see any common sense, because why would America, which is waging a ruthless trade war with China, suddenly add this part of the equation of the sanctions on the military, when already there's enough tension? So I can see there's this battle going on in Washington, and I can see that both in Beijing and Moscow, they're looking at it and also trying, just like all of us tonight, are trying to find some sort of a logic and not really seeing any logic. That, I think, is the main difference between the previous administration. At least we knew they didn't want to do anything about the Middle East, and they were very hostile to Russia, all of them. Here, we don't understand what's going on. You know, there is no logic here.
Peter, are we looking for logic in what is a very confusing situation? Because actually, if we look at Donald Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin, they appear to get on well on a personal level, but at the same time, the United States continues to impose sanctions on Russia, keeps turning the screws on Russia.
I kept warning my Russian colleagues that Donald Trump is not going to be a friend to Russia, that there are people who are going to not allow him to be, even if he himself wanted to be, and that they're going to end up regretting the support that they gave to Trump in 2016. And we've seen that. And now the Russians recognize that the situation is volatile, it's unstable. Trump is rash and unpredictable in many ways, and the situation has actually gotten worse. I go back to Vladimir Putin's March 1st State of the Nation address, and he was very, very forceful there. And what he said, among other things, was that Russia has now developed 5 new nuclear weapons, each capable of avoiding and circumventing America's missile defense system. Russia is playing a serious game here. These Vostok 18 military exercises that just took place were massive. 300,000 Russian troops, 3,200 Chinese troops. We've got China confronting the United States in the South China Sea, the freedom of navigation operations. So I think that any of these kinds of efforts, it seems like we were saying, not to make sense from the American strategic standpoint. It seems like a gratuitous worsening of relations, heightening of tensions with both Russia and China. And what's the effect of that? Russia and China are being driven closer together with Iran and other countries. And Xi Jinping said a few months ago that Vladimir Putin is his best, most intimate friend in the world now. Is that really in the United States' interest to drive Russia and China together, both economically, militarily, geopolitically? I think we're playing a losing game here, and it's creating a more dangerous world.
Yuval, what's your view on that assessment?
I think I may have an even more dire opinion than my colleague here, because in Donald Trump, Russia, for the first time perhaps since FDR during World War II, has a U.S. president who sees U.S.-Russian relations from the Russian point of view. So Russia and China have both wanted to revise the international order. They want to limit U.S. power and the way that the U.S. can set the rules of international economic and political interaction, which is fair enough. They want life to be easier for them. The consequence of having Donald Trump in power right now is that this is the time to take whatever they're going to get. And so as soon as Donald Trump is out of office, whether that's tomorrow or in 2020 or in 2024, at that point, there will be a next U.S. president, whether Democrat or Republican, who's going to take a very, very anti-Russia position, whatever that entails, and is going to also look very poorly at China's attempts to revise the international order during the time of Donald Trump. So what we'll have is that Donald Trump, in terms of international peace, it's fairly peaceful as is in terms of the great power politics. But as soon as he's gone, the United States is going to try and recover the position that's lost under him. Russia and China are not going to look at that very kindly. And so we, in fact, have more of a potential of great power conflict as soon as Trump is gone.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering about that. You know, does the United States have the luxury of being able to call the shots in the future? Because we have a country like China, which is a growing and emerging power economically.
So in that context, that's what sort of the great power coordination should be. In terms of what do the rules actually look like? We have had a sort of US-dominated but Euro-Atlantic alliance that has dominated international affairs since the end of World War II. China's clearly growing. There should be some mechanism to figure out what are the similarities, what are the differences, and how to avoid actual conflict. But because of the sort of geostrategic issues that we've been talking about, plus essentially this brand new trade war, which shows no signs of letting up, we have we're basically stumbling into something that's much more violent and potentially much more sort of like prosperity destroying than prosperity creating.
Qinduo, short of China condemning this move and calling for its withdrawal, what other responses can China take?
Well, you know, if you look at the past behavior, China might to say slow down or cut off some of the military communication with the U.S. side. But I wonder, I'm not sure. It seems to me like it's not likely China will do the revenge in a tit-for-tat fashion because there is a lot of trouble right now between China and the United States. But China probably has the choices to do something against the United States, either on the issue of Iran or the issue of, say, Korean Peninsula situation. China has been very cooperative with the U.S. in their efforts to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, the North Korea. China has been cooperating with the U.S. on the Iranian nuclear issue. But of course, come at in early November, we will see probably China will continue its business with Iran, disregarding the U.S. sanctions on Iran. So they will create more problem between China and the U.S.
Yeah. Alexander, what are your thoughts on the United States' economic clout and its ability to get its way by using sanctions?
Well, first of all, I don't really understand when Trump decided to put tariffs on Chinese goods. And how is it going to play in America itself, where people will have to pay much more for everything? This, I don't understand how this works. I mean, on the one hand, he talks about how he wants to improve the economy. On the other hand, with his very strange political maneuvering, he's hitting his own people in the pocket directly, and especially the poor ones, which he supposedly protects. So is there a proper economic policy that Trump has? He always talks about how wonderful the markets are doing. The markets don't really reflect the economy anymore. If you look at the world economies, some of the corporations that have shares going through the roof are not doing very well. So he must understand that he can talk as much as he wants about the Dow Jones and others going up, but the people on the ground are not feeling this impact if he thinks they're feeling it. So we will see in November how this all plays out for Trump during the election, because I have this strange feeling that Trump is really very, very worried about the midterms election. And that's why we've heard him saying, like, well, if they impeach me, the American economy will collapse. This is a very strange statement for a president of the United States.
Qinduo, I've only got 20 seconds left. Is what happened in the past 24 hours going to make it even more difficult to resolve the trade dispute?
Not necessarily, actually. I think the trade will still be the focus between the two countries. And for China, China has been very careful.
Right.
Want to keep this stable, this relationship, want to solve this problem.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks to all of you for being with us.